Welcome to the Uncredible Podcast. My name's Jeremy, and I'm Uncredible. Let's get into the Substack. Got a lot of things going on. I know last week I kind of threw it out there that wasn't sure what direction I was going to be heading in, but we got some ideas, so let me share where we're at for this week and next week and for the future. So this week I didn't really have... last week when I actually recorded the episode, I didn't really have a plan in place for the Substack. I didn't have some articles prepared like I've had in the past. So we'll just update what went on this week. I give a full pool update. It's an article called When Free Isn't Free. And basically what I talk about is how just because something is presented as free doesn't mean there isn't a cost. And I use the examples of a free piano and in our case, a free pool. This free pool thing was a complete nightmare for the last year. Part of it is because we didn't know what we were doing. Part of it was I stayed out of it until it was too far and we kind of had to finish it. So I kind of figured it out and pieced things together on my own. So just a whole bunch of challenges. But the good news is the pool is up. I just ran, we bought a year ago, we bought this little pool robot that cleans the floor. I just ran that today, and we're waiting on a couple of gaskets for the skimmer. I'm learning all these new terms. I never knew, I had a pool. My dad had a pool. He actually got it from my grandfather growing up, and we had all these things, but I was too little to really get involved with the actual chemicals. I do remember we did have a chore. One of us had a chore. I can't remember if it was me or my brother or my sister, to take a scoop of the chlorine and throw it in the pool every now and again. I know I did that a few times, but I think I did it for one of my family members. I can't fully recall. But yeah, so the first article this week on Wednesday was the pool update, and that was When Free Isn't Free or something to that effect. I forgot. I don't have the title here, but a couple weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I had mentioned that I was going to be posting my last throwback article from medium.com, and it was written, it was ready to go, it just wasn't recorded. And it was the weekend heading into the marathon, I'm pretty sure. And I think my thought process at the time was, I want to get the podcast recorded and then use that Memorial Day weekend to get it published and produced and put out there. And I kind of just let that article sit the whole week last week. So I did make sure to get that posted. Oh, you know what it is? Trying to remember the title of that article. Wow. But I think it's like before your memories fade away or something like that. Basically what it is an article where I sort of lay out all the pieces of equipment that you would need in order to transfer old VHS, High 8, Sony 8, those little, I think it was VHS-C tapes, how to go about converting those to digital on your own for fairly cheap. After going through that whole process with my family's VHS videos and then my wife's family's videos, it was complicated and it was challenging. Took a lot of research and finding the right equipment and, scouring eBay and Marketplace and all those things. So I thought I would try to save the next person the time or the money, depending on your situation. So I posted that article. I hope if you have old VHS tapes or old camcorder memories that maybe your grandfather had or your father had, don't pay for someone else to do that work. Don't do that thing where you put it in an envelope and you ship it off to somebody and they charge you per minute or per hour or whatever convoluted scheme they have. I remember looking at this years ago, and it was going to cost thousands of dollars to transfer all the hours of video. And you can do it yourself. And that's kind of the point of the article, is to encourage you to take the time, invest the energy and effort into getting the equipment yourself. Because it is once you get it all pieced together, it's not that difficult. If you're even the slightest bit tech savvy, it's not that hard to do. And once you have the equipment, I think it'd probably run you anywhere from, right now in this economy, I think I paid anywhere from $200 to $300 in equipment. Now you might run 500 max. This depends on what things are going for on eBay and what types of tapes you're trying to convert. So yeah, I just encourage you to do that yourself and then hold on to the equipment, because you may run into someone else who would like to have that done, but they don't know how to do it. And if you have the equipment, you could be the lifesaver and make all your money back. I'm not saying start a business. I'm just saying you could help out a few family members with transferring their videos. And if you already have the equipment, it's very easy. And then they might give you, $50, $100, whatever, depending on how many tapes they have. And you could just make all your money back. You could also turn around and resell the equipment. I still have all my equipment. Most of it's sitting on this desk, actually. It's actually kind of behind. It's kind of the story behind starting this podcast. It's sort of the technological background, because after I realized how to use the software to capture the VHS videos, I kind of got back into playing around with video on a computer. And so that kind of got me thinking, well, I have cameras, I have a microphone still, maybe I could start a podcast. So if you go back to episode 0, I might have done this in episode 1 as well. I actually used VHS, the Sony VHS camcorder that I used to convert my mother-in-law's old, I guess they're called High 8 or Video 8 tapes. I used that camcorder for a couple of the episodes for the secondary cam over here. Oh, by the way, I don't know if anyone cares about this, but I like to share it with you because it's an uncredible aspect of the production of the podcast. And I kind of feel like when you watch a professional or you listen to a professional podcast, you don't get this. But I did a flip-flop finally. I finally figured out a way to trust this camera, which is actually the better camera. I found a way to trust this camera as the primary, and so I moved the lesser quality camera over there. I actually noticed, last week when I was going over the edits for the video, I actually noticed the quality difference between the two, and I thought I'm gonna switch those. So as we're entering into episode 20, which is crazy, by the way, it's technically episode 21, but as we're entering into this episode, I thought let's start nailing down some of these processes. So on the Substack this week, you've got the pool update and you've got the throwback article for what equipment you would basically need in order to convert your old family memories to digital and keep them forever. Now, next week, I have an article coming out called The Authentic Self. This is something I've been noticing in the corporate world lately. It seems like there is this emphasis on wanting people to be able to bring their authentic self to work. And I've noticed it used a couple times at my job, and then I started researching it a little bit, and it comes from, and listen, remember, this is the Uncredible Podcast. I just did a quick Google search, ChatGPT, AI, the easy stuff. If I'm wrong, feel free to comment in the comment section. But what I saw was this has been a push for quite a while to get workers to not spend energy hiding who they are so they can be more productive, which it's wild how some of these things that companies do that ultimately get presented as benefits for the employees are actually intended to be benefits for the company. And it's kind of gross sometimes when you start to look into the background on some of this stuff. But yeah, so I did an article on the authentic self, and I talk about in that article, why you wouldn't want people to be their authentic self. And I kind of discuss the fiction that we all accept. We're all hiding. As far as society goes, we're all hiding something. And I don't mean that in a bad way. There's a decorum. Not everything needs to be aired out. You've heard the old saying, don't air out your dirty laundry. Some things you don't just have to say everything you're thinking, and you don't have to spit all your opinions. Even in this culture, you should totally be free to do that. But there is context where certain things aren't appropriate, and it's okay if you don't bring it up. And total and complete honesty at all times can hurt people's feelings. You've probably seen some of these old folk tales where it goes too far. Just because you think it doesn't mean it has to come out. And we as people are ever changing. And so in any given moment, our authentic self might not properly capture our entire being. And so in a fit of rage or in a bad moment, my authentic self might not be, acceptable. And that's really the rub, right? The rub is a company or an organization or a government that's telling you, hey, we want you to be your authentic self, that also has guidelines and rules for what's acceptable and what's not, kind of puts you in a tough place, because it's like, you want me to be my authentic self, but if I do that, I'm going to break one of your rules. And so that's kind of the rub I talk about, the conflict. And then we'll see how this plays out next week. I've been thinking a lot about the Substack and how I want to continue to develop it. And now that those past articles are complete, I'm thinking about doing two new things. One is I want to go back to the old podcast episodes and start clipping out the segments. So we have all these segments like the weekly running update and the in the news and the through an Uncredible Lens. And we have these segments that I've been building, and it creates a long form, what has consistently been about an hour and a half podcast. That's a lot for some people. Some people look at it and go, that's too long. So what I want to do is I'm going to create some playlists on YouTube that will be only those sections that are going to be searchable by topic. So whatever I talked about that week will be the topic header. But then, like, if you listen to this podcast and you're really only interested in my uncredible take on the news, there's going to be a segment for that. What that means for the Substack is, instead of our throwback articles, I want to go through episode by episode, and it'll kind of be like a throwback. So it'll kind of be like a throwback in the sense that we'll be looking back at the episodes, but I'm going to repost the clips or the highlights from the episode in a new Substack. It'll be like an article, but it'll just have the links and maybe a synopsis of the episode itself. But it'll give people a chance to look at that episode, not as a whole, but in the context of some of the things that I talked about. And, if you're only interested in, if you only follow me, for example, for the running aspect of it, well, you might be just clicking on the running aspect. Or you might look at the episode and go, I don't really care about, whatever he talked about in his main topic. I want to go to the news. I want to hear what he talked about in the news. So that's coming. And so instead of having throwback articles for the next, could be longer than this, but for the next 20 or so weeks, basically the rest of the year almost, on Thursday, I'm going to drop old clips of old episodes, and I may, depending on how much time I have, I may also do the same thing with the new episodes. So in fact, what I might do is I might create so right now what I do is I create a post for each episode that's clickable. You can just click it and go to YouTube from there. Maybe I'll start clipping the episode and making that the whole post. I don't know. We'll see. But basically what you're going to start seeing is Wednesday will be a new article. Thursday will be some throwback clips. Saturday will continue to be the podcast. And when I'm late, it'll be Sunday or Monday, or whenever I get around to publishing it. And then I'm going to start using Monday for unique and special content. And what I mean by that is I've really had this goal of writing a book called Uncredible the Book, The Art of Becoming Nobody. And my vision for that book is that it would just be a Kindle direct publish where you could just download the ebook. Or I think you can make print copies. I haven't gotten that far. I want to write the book first, but it's basically going to be a 3-chapter book, kind of like a mini book. And it's just going to kind of lay out some of the reasons why I came up with this term uncredible, why I so relate to this term uncredible, and get into some of the stories from work, from education, and now from running and my weight loss journey and all that. I just want to throw all that in there and combine it with the audiobook aspect so that the audiobook's available. But I kind of want to build this book in front of the audience. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to start posting sections of the book and as individual articles with the audio, and you'll be able to listen to the audio and hear, basically, if you follow and you subscribe and all that stuff, you'll be able to actually listen to the full audiobook just through the subscription on Substack. And then when it publishes, maybe I'll lock those posts or lock the audio. I don't know what I'll do with it. But in the meantime, Mondays are going to be just book work. Some weeks I won't have a Monday, other weeks I will. And it'll be like anywhere from 500 to 800 words of the book just popping up in your feed, and you'll be able to listen to it. So if you haven't checked out the Substack, highly recommend it. There are some clunky things about Substack, but what I really appreciate about Substack is that it's a social media platform for sure, but it also kind of tailors to longer form writing, audio. It has podcasts, it has video, and it has the opportunity, I think, to be a real nice hub. For me personally, it has the things I need to do the wide variety of content that I'm trying to put out. But as I'm continuing to learn how that ecosystem works, I've noticed that when I interact with people, for example, on Instagram or Facebook or Threads or Twitter, I don't do much on Twitter. I still don't understand X right now. I've never been able to figure that out since it got transferred over. But my social media interaction on those platforms is very quick, snappy, thank you, thumbs up, fist bump, things like that. Where on the Substack, when I interact with people, I really have to tap the brakes and give thoughtful responses, and the people on there are giving thoughtful responses. So it's just a slightly slower, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but just like a more calm environment where it's not just rapid. People are actually investing their time. And so it has that advantage. And I encourage you to just get on the app for Substack, because I think if you're using the desktop, that's fine. But I think where Substack is going to be the most beneficial to an average user is through the actual app, because you can actually hit play on an article in the app and then put the phone away, and it'll just play in your earbud. So you could actually listen to articles just freely. Now, my articles I record. Some people are using AI voiceover, which they offer for Substack. I don't do that. I'm avoiding that. I actually enjoy the recording process. So check that out. It's uncredible.me. That'll take you directly to the Substack. You're going to get this, this is the clunky part of Substack, is you're going to get this clunky, do you want to sign up? And it's kind of like a turnoff. It's like a first page turnoff. But at the very bottom, if you click no thank you, you can jump right to the full website, see all the articles, all the podcasts, and soon all the book snippets. There is one book snippet. It's pretty old. I posted it a long time ago. I think it was back in October of 2025. And I actually have the full introduction and part of chapter 1 written already. I have a long way to go on chapter 1, but that stuff's going to start popping up on Substack. So if you're not subscribed, it's free to subscribe. Down the road, I'm probably going to make some of the content, like the book specifically, paid for content. But for right now, it's all free. So you can hop on there and check it out. Also, I never know where to promote this, but I have Uncredible Readings on Spotify. It's sort of like a separate podcast. It's really a podcast. I don't know. But it's basically all the audio from Substack articles in one place. So you could actually, they're usually like 6, I think the longest one might be 12 or 15 minutes, but it's just me reading the articles, kind of like an audiobook, but for articles. So check that out. You'd have to go to Spotify for that and look up Uncredible Readings. So yeah, that's what's going on the Substack. A lot of fun stuff. I know at least for the next 2 weeks, you're going to get you're going to get new articles, throwback clips, and book excerpts. I've already got that set up, ready to go. So hopefully, given that 2-week buffer, now that that's set up, I'll be able to continue that process and keep pushing forward. All right, now let's get into our weekly update. We are into week 2 of marathon training, our 3rd marathon. Again, the marathon is halfway to the Holidays Marathon in Johnstown, Ohio on July 25th. So that's going to be a fun time. Still recovering a little bit from the Buffalo Marathon, which was 2 weeks ago. It's the second week after a marathon it's interesting because you start to feel mentally and physically like you're able to go. But in the back of your mind, you kind of feel like, there's still some soreness here. There's still some soreness there. And so I avoided a long run last week altogether. So last Saturday, which Saturdays and Sundays would be long run days, I didn't do one last week. I did 1 mile on Saturday. And Sunday, I was really feeling good. So on Sunday, when I went out, I had the plan of running 7 to 8 miles. I thought, I think I'm good for a long run, like long-ish. I was definitely not going to go double digits, but I was planning to go 7 or 8. And I got out there, and as I came to, there's a point in my route where I'm at like 5 miles, where I can go past the road to my house and add about 2 miles. So that puts me right around like 7 in the end. I got to that point, and my legs were just kind of, my quad from the marathon the week before was a little bit sore. My hamstring was a little bit sore, and I was like, it's only been a week. It's not worth it. So I pulled back. I went home and just kind of left it alone. Monday and Tuesday, Monday I didn't feel the greatest, but I wanted to get 4 miles, so I got 4 easy miles. But my pace I could tell everything was starting to feel better in terms of like, I can go a little faster now. And the point of this training block is simply to survive this next marathon and like without cramping or having some of the struggles I've had in the first 2. So I'm trying to do longer runs with less stress on my legs overall, trying to get used to that distance and be able to maintain it. And so Monday, I just did the 4, kind of took it easy. Tuesday was the first day that I really felt like I could have gone a long way. And it almost turned into a long run. And I chose not to intentionally, but I ran 7.2 miles, really felt good, kind of felt like myself again. The pace on that was pretty decent too. I think I ran like a 10:30. And so Tuesday was a good day. Muscles have been sore throughout, but sometimes you just have to gauge that depending on how it's going. And then Wednesday, I decided to do a 5K and push it a little bit. Again, I was starting to feel like I was doing good. And at that point, I'm like a week and a half since the marathon. So I pushed it, and I had a 9:10 pace. And I'm telling you, the second half of that was high 8s because I intentionally went slow on the first and then uncorked it in the second too. And it was fun. I had a good time, and I didn't feel bad initially. But the next day, Thursday, which was yesterday, I went out, and I'm telling you, I paid big time because when I was out on my run, I had to back my pace off a lot because I could feel cramping starting, like the remnants of cramps starting. So I was literally like, nope, turn it off and walk. So I just walked. But I'm 100% sure that's from overdoing it on Wednesday. Even though I had fun and I went faster than I probably should have, especially this close to the marathon, I was feeling it. However, I mentioned the pool earlier, and I had put chlorine in the pool right before this 7.3 mile run on Thursday. And so I come back from my run, and I'm like, you know what? I need to get the chlorine, stirred up in the pool. So I decided to go in the pool. And so I would be the first person in this finally complete pool that we worked about a year on. And so in my head, I'm thinking it's a hot day. This is going to feel great. And in my head, I was going to swim laps and, burn calories and maybe run around in the pool for, just to build leg strength, whatever. That's what was going on in my head. I dropped into that water, and I had forgotten that where I'm at in New York State, the nights have been in the 40s. This was about 11 o'clock. The sun was just barely peeking over my roof. It was cold. And I've seen people do the cold plunge. I've thought about doing the cold plunge, but it's not something I'm real excited about. I mean, I ran all winter long, so I'm not afraid of the cold. I got nothing to prove with ice, and I certainly don't want to be sitting in it for no reason. But what I will say is that whole run, on Thursday where my calf was tight, my hamstring was tight, my quad was sore, and I got in the pool and I was like, whoa, this is cold. When I got out, I was in the pool. I'm going to guesstimate that it was about 48 to 50 degrees. So I don't know where that falls in the cold plunge realm. But when I got out after being in that for 10 minutes, I was like, oh, I totally get it. Like I totally get this cold plunge thing because my soreness and my pain and the tightness I felt in my right leg was all but gone. Now it did come back. I went in, took a shower, and it slowly came back. And then when I woke up to go to work last night, it was like, it was there. So it didn't completely heal me or anything, but generally speaking, I'm going to probably make that a part of my process now where I hop in the pool at the end of my runs and just cool off. It won't be this cold for much longer, but the next couple weeks for sure it will be. So, and that's, the next marathon is 6 weeks away basically at this point. So, I'm looking at my watch and it's not turning on. That's why I'm getting frustrated, but there it is. So yeah. I'm 6 weeks away from the next marathon. So a couple of weeks is going to put me almost right on top of it. So, haven't run today. I'm thinking about doing something easy. Depends how long the podcast goes. But my takeaway this week, basically slow and steady. That's going to be this whole 8 weeks. It's basically like a light recovery. Get that distance. That's my goal. I want to go to this halfway to the holidays marathon and get my distance. I want to be able to run, even if running means 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12. I want to run this marathon the whole way. I don't want to have cramps. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. I just want to be able to finish. If it's 4.5 hours, if it's 4 hours and 58 minutes, don't care. I just want to be able to lock in a pace that doesn't stress me out and crush my legs in the end. So, and I, the other takeaway was the pool kind of acts as a cold plunge, which that was pretty cool. So, all right, now let's get into the news and get an uncredible take. I actually, it's funny. I went to work last night and I really didn't have anything for the in the news section. I had a pretty solid, I'm kind of excited about our podcast feature this week, but I didn't really have anything for in the news. And it was blank on my notes and I was like, that's okay. I don't always have to have a news article. Last week we did Kyle Busch. We don't need politics every single week. We don't need to talk about the Iran war or economics or anything like that. It's okay to not have that. However, I'm on my way to work and I notice just sort of like I get in my car, flip through Facebook and notice this little video clip of Kash Patel launching an FBI most wanted list specifically for fraudsters. And they use the word not those who commit fraud. They called them fraudsters. It's the FBI fraudster list. And it's just watching it on the face of it without reading any comments. I thought there's no way that's real. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like an AI thing that was kind of like telling us that they were going after fraud when they're the ones who commit fraud. Ha ha ha. Like that was the joke. I thought that was the joke. And then I get to work and I look into it a little more closely and it was, as far as I can tell, it was real. And it had like dates when these people committed the fraud, the amount of money that they apparently stole or took or whatever. And like you've got Kash Patel, J.D. Vance, all these people standing up there acting like they care about fraud. And it was just like, yo. And the comments, like the first thing you think when you look at the, I think there were 8 people. I think someone made the joke he was doing FBI's top 10 most wanted, and it was only 8. And I don't know if he said top 10 or not. The clips I saw didn't say top 10. It just said most wanted. But there were 8 individuals on there. And if you look at them, it's like, it's not who you would expect given the news reporting over the last year to 2 years, where we've seen all kinds of fraud at the political level, like politicians involved with fraud. You don't see, it wasn't like people in their suit and tie. No, it was like these people in these like really sketchy look. Probably I don't know where they get these photos from. Probably mugshots, but they have the photos. But like your initial thought, at least my initial thought when I saw that I was like, that those pictures should be people from the Epstein class. It should be hot, rich people, rich government people who've been defrauding us, politicians, businessmen. These are the people who are wasting the most money. Anybody who was involved with any of the setting up of the Doge, the stuff that we found with Doge, it wasn't. It was like, the thing was, when you watch it, you're like, there's nobody from the Epstein class and the elite frauds. You look at it and it's like, these people who are presenting this to us are the elite fraudsters who are telling us that they're chasing the low-level fraudsters. It's kind of like if you were like a kingpin drug dealer in your state, we'll say in your state, and you come out on a news broadcast, and in order to crush your competition, you put out the top 10 worst drug dealers in your city or in your state, and then you list the cities where they're from, and we need your help to capture them. Like you said, it seems like something from a movie. It's like there's no way that they're not catching the irony of what this looks like. It's almost like they're trying to punk us and gaslight us into saying, oh yeah, let's get the real fraudsters. But they're not even saying the real fraudsters. It's like, you don't know that you guys are the fraudsters? Let me put it this way. You don't know that the American people, the average uncredible people who are working day in and day out, paying their taxes and watching it go nowhere, you don't know that we think you're the fraudsters? And then you do this to sort of like rub it in our face. Like, at this point, I think there's a general consensus that people at the high political levels and high business levels are involved with fraud on some level. They're making their money in a less than ethical way. We won't say illegal, but a less than ethical way. And they come out with this, and it's like, yeah, we deal the most cocaine in all of the city, but we want you to chase the drug dealers. Like, bro, it's you. And so I posted, I think I first saw it on a Fox News Facebook post. So I posted that little Spider-Man meme where there's two Spider-Men and they're pointing at each other. It's just hard to believe that it's not being done intentionally. Like, it's just hard to believe. And then when you think about what's going on with Epstein, and it's like, oh, I'm so glad that the FBI is chasing the fraud. It's like, we already know where the fraud lies. Why aren't you chasing that? You had the last 2 years or so to chase this stuff, and now you're pretending these low-level people that nobody's ever heard of are your primary targets. Like, come on. It was just, maybe I'm just being a little jaded because of the way the news has been, and not really a big fan of where things are at. But man, it did not. My first reaction was, oh, you're chasing yourself. And you look at the pictures and go, oh no, you're ignoring them. Like, you're ignoring the real fraudsters, which is the government and big business who are defrauding their people on the regular, and you're going after more of them. Now, I'm not saying the people on that list are good, bad, or indifferent. They're probably bad people too, but they don't hold a candle to what's been going on, at the state and city levels right now. So at least, and just in terms of what we know, which, the Minnesota thing just kind of vanished, right? That thing just kind of vanished, and we had all kinds of government money being funneled into that. So it's hard. My uncredible take, this is be a short news take, but I just thought that whole situation was funny. My uncredible take is, at this point, it seems like we're being trolled. The ultimate fraudsters are trying to give us a list of fraudsters to catch. Like, come on. Just ridiculous. Let me know what you think about what's been going on with the FBI, specifically Kash Patel. Kash Patel, let me just say, I didn't know anything about him. I did listen to his episode of Rogan before. Was it before? Like a year, whatever his last episode was. And I was just like, this guy is lying. Like, I didn't trust a word he said, and it has only gotten worse since then. Like, he is not a good person to be up front. He's a terrible liar. Like, he has the face of somebody who's lying when he's lying, and it's not good. It's not good. So, share your thoughts in the comments. I know that's a short news update or take on the news, but they don't always have to be long. They can just be interesting or funny. And with that said, we have what's probably going to be a pretty long main topic here. So let's get into our main topic and look at the world through an uncredible lens. This is going to be, it's hard to set this one up because I had I can't even remember how I got on. I do remember how I got on this. So I was thinking a lot about where we're headed politically right now. And I think I was telling someone at work, or it might have been like my son or something. I was telling somebody, I think it was somebody at work, that I'm very concerned about the direction we're headed. Because in the U.S., there seems to be, because of the Iran war or the Iran conflict and this whole thing with Israel, whatever this thing is, I'm not going to get into the details of it. I think I've made it pretty obvious which side I'm on. I don't support the war. I don't think the country should be supporting Israel. That's all I'm going to say on that. But what I was talking about was how Republicans kind of pushed this second Trump term as sort of like, we have to do this because the woke left is, I mean, Elon Musk was publicly saying that there would be no more elections ever again if the Democrats won. That he believed at the time that Democrats would continue to use immigration to bolster their numbers and steal elections, and that if Trump didn't win, that somehow that would mean we would never have an honest, real vote again, and Democrats would win forevermore. I'm going to tell you right now, I'll be 43 this year, next year 44. This month I turn 43. I cannot tell you the number of election cycles where businessmen and politicians tried to convince me that the next election was the most important election of my lifetime. And I've got news for you. None of them have been that important. They just haven't. They just try to get the vote out. That's the whole point. But this person and I were talking, and my concern was that because the direction the Republican Party has gone in this second term in the last year with the Iran war, Venezuela, all that stuff, the Greenland comments, all that stuff, I kind of feel like what our next focus is going to be, or what's going to happen next politically, is the left is going to win the midterms. They're going to spend the next 2 years chasing Trump for war crimes or who knows what. They're going to do roughly what they did before, where they try to just bury him in litigation. He's not going to be able to get anything done. And then the next election cycle, when we get into the presidency, the Democrats could very easily win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, all because of this situation with Iran and what's going on there. If they don't clean it up soon, it could turn that direction. And it got me thinking about where we were under Biden, under Obama, and even really in Trump's first term with COVID, like the direction we were headed and how quickly during COVID things changed. And I just started thinking about all that stuff. And there's a lot of people who think that the woke left, since Trump came into office, we squashed all that and all that censorship and stuff is gone. I just think it's dormant. I think those people are just waiting till they have the power again, and then they're just going to ramp it back up. And man, COVID was really eye-opening for me because of the way in which people went along with the narratives. Now, we've seen similar things since there, but just not on as wide of a scale. And I'm kind of seeing it on both sides now, where you have people who are more interested in groupthink, being a part of a group and being accepted by a group, than they care about the direction of the country, what's ethical, what's moral, what's right. And I started to remember, I want to say I was in junior high, but this movie, which as I remember it and as I've seen it in clips on YouTube, it was an after-school special. I remember it as a VHS tape that one of my professors, geez, been out of school for a long time. One of my teachers, I guess they're professor, I don't know. One of my teachers played, I don't know if this ever happened to you. I know it happens a lot now. But when I was in junior high and high school, this might be unfair, but whenever a teacher wanted a break, they would have a scheduled TV time. And I think they had to sign it out or something. And I remember as a student going to get the TV from another teacher's class was a highlight. But I remember they wheeled in this TV and we watched this. I'm pretty sure we watched it over the course of 2 days. The running time's about 44 minutes. And I was thinking about, I was like, man, I really remember this video where it basically talked about a teacher who ran an experiment and in his classroom to show his students how people could have gone along with Hitler during World War II. How people could have gone along with the Holocaust. Why wouldn't they say something? Why wouldn't they speak up? And they had sort of have this cavalier attitude. And I was telling this coworker this, and again, I think it was a coworker. It might have been, I don't know, I can't remember if I was telling a coworker or my son. I didn't tell my son yet because I wanted to show him the video. But we were talking about it, and it was so, I was remembering so many aspects of this video that I was like, I don't know if I'm remembering it correctly. There's sometimes when I have these things in my memory and I'm like, am I remembering that correctly? Might be just because I'm getting old. But I'm like, I go through these different phases where I'm like, yeah, I distinctly remember this, and this happening. And then in my head, I'm like, am I sure about that? And then I'm like, man, that was a long time ago. And then I started asking myself this question. Why do I remember that? Why is that so impactful to me? And so then I start to go down the rabbit hole where I'm like, I want to see if I can find this video. Well, I found the movie. And I'm not even sure if movie. It says full movie on the YouTube clip. I'm going to put a link in the description. I'm going to try to play the clips, three clips for you and talk about them. I don't know if YouTube's going to strike this or copyright it. I'm hoping it doesn't because of how short the clips are that I picked. Really hoping. This isn't like a famous movie as far as I'm aware, but the movie is called The Wave. And I think if you were going to research this, like the facts of this, I think it was called The Third Wave. And basically what it was a teacher, and I guess it was a real thing, although some of the facts are disputed. A teacher ran an experiment in his class where he basically set the students up to create his own little Nazi Germany. And he created a whole bunch of tyrants. And so I went back and I watched it, and I wanted to share a couple of the clips from it and then kind of just talk about how these things are similar to what I see currently in the culture today. So the first clip is about midway through, and it's about 20 seconds long. So let's do this. This is called The Wave, and according to what I'm looking at, it's a 1981 full movie. So let's play this clip first.
It's The Wave.
Mr. Ross, we know how important this is to you. It is to all of us. But it's just gone too far.
It's taken over, Mr. Ross. There's no room to be yourself or say what you really believe.
And all the kids in school are scared. They're really scared. Not only to say anything against the wave, but what might happen to them if they don't go along with it.
Kids are actually spying on each other. Some of them are even using the wave as an excuse to beat up on other kids.
So, what's happening here is these two students are not fitting in with the group. They're trying to tell the group, hey, this is getting out of hand. And this group called The Wave that the teacher's behind, he created the group to sort of demonstrate this. They think it's getting out of hand. And so they come to the teacher's house to talk to him and say, hey, you got to stop this. This is getting crazy. And one of the things that stood out to me was there's a comment here. I got to go back to the beginning of it because I want to make sure I say it correctly. I want to play it again for myself. But there's a comment here where the students say, the boy specifically says, people can't be themselves. He says there's no room to be yourself or say what you really mean. And I was like, think about that. Think about some of the movements in our culture right now where people don't feel comfortable saying what they want to say because they'll be outed. They'll be made fun of. They might lose their job if they have an opinion that disagrees with the majority group. And then I don't even have to say the groups. You know what they are. You might, in your head, you're going to go, oh yeah, I feel that way because of this situation or that situation. And basically what this video, the movie itself, is trying to highlight this fact that fascism, tyrant rule, groupthink. None of this is American by its nature. And then I look at the left, the woke left, as sometimes it's called pejoratively, and I look at MAGA on the right. And when you're in the company of those groups of people, you know there are things you just keep to yourself. You don't say them out loud. You just let it be. And I look at MAGA specifically because they're in power right now. This is definitely true of the woke left during the Biden years, for sure. But you look at the MAGA group right now. They're just going along with the crowd. And anybody who dissents, I mean, it's really bad right now, but anyone who dissents from Trump's voice, and I'm just using Trump as an example, I think it's bigger than Trump's voice, actually. But anybody who differs from that party line, so to speak, they're not part of the group anymore. They're shunned. And what's crazy is both sides, and this will come up a little bit later, both sides do this thing where they want to silence the opposite opinion. They don't want it to be able to be expressed because it's dangerous and it can't be good for you and it undermines the truth. And it's like, whew, I mean, when you start chasing after silencing your opposition, you're going down a weird path. Let me jump towards the end. So basically what happens in the movie is get my clip ready. These students convince him to end this I think it ended up being like a week-long experiment. Get this right where I want it. They convince him to end it, but he says, hey, I am going to end it. I'm going to stop it, but I want to do it my way. And initially, the students, these two students get ostracized because they go to class and the professor says to the class, like, hey, I want you all to come to the auditorium. Our national leader is going to speak. And this great movement of students is sweeping the nation. And then these two, not understanding where he's going with this, they protest. And he has the students a couple of the students take them out because they're not part of the group anymore. And the whole movie culminates, spoiler alert, I don't think anyone's going to go chase this down. The movie culminates in a scene where he pulls the TVs out in the auditorium and tells them our leader is about to speak. And the crowd starts to get irritated as nothing shows up on the televisions. There's nothing there. And then finally, it starts as a hum or a buzz. And then finally, people start getting mad. Like, when are we going to find out who the national leader is? How are we going to learn this? And finally, one of the kids stands up and says, there is no national leader, is there? It's all a lie. And he's like really mad. And then the professor flips it. Instead of the TVs, the curtain behind him opens up. There's a giant screen of Adolf Hitler giving one of his, passionate speeches, and he goes, here's your leader. And so he kind of drops that bomb on him. But then he goes into a dialogue where he explains to the students why he did it. And I want to share two clips from the speech because I think they're so powerful, and I think we kind of need to hear this message in the United States of America today, because I think we're losing this by and large, particularly on the major parties where people are so devoted to their party. So here's the first section of it. Make sure I get my times right.
You thought you were so special, better than everyone outside this room. You traded your freedom for the luxury of feeling superior. You accepted the group's will over your own convictions, no matter who you hurt. Oh, you thought you were just going along for the ride, that you could walk away at any moment. But where were you heading? How far would you have gone?
I love that line in this movie. It's just so powerful. But he basically narrows it down to, you thought you were special. You just went along with the group. How far would you have gone? How far would you have gone? And basically what he's saying is, you gave up your individual thoughts. You got swept up by groupthink, and you just went along for the ride. And you let a dictator, in this case, he was the dictator, ironically, but you let a group think for you. Instead of evaluating each situation, good, bad, or indifferent. You just said, oh, this is what the group wants, so let's do what the group says. And I was listening to that, thinking to myself, both Democrats right now and Republicans have a large voice. We'll say voice because I won't say the majority. I'm not sure that it's true that the majority of either side is one way or the other. But there is a loud voice in both parties that comes across exactly like what he talked about here, where the people are just going along, they're happy to be part of a group, and they won't differ from what the group says. And they won't think about their actions. They won't think independently. They just go along with it. And then he asks the very logical question: how far would you go for this group? And I look right now, for me, I look at MAGA, and what you're seeing with what's known as the MAGA Republicans, or people who are still supporting Trump and those who are going, this is getting a little out of hand, guys. What you're seeing is people realizing that maybe going along with this group wasn't a good idea. And so that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing when people say, that's a bridge too far. I'm not going to go there. But what's more concerning, I think, to me, isn't the people who go, 3 weeks in Iraq would have been fine. 3 weeks in Iran, 4 weeks in Iran would have been fine. But now that we're getting into 13 and 14 and 15 weeks, it's like, this isn't okay. And you're slowly seeing people detract. And look at what the people who are still in support of the group are doing, right? They're looking at those people and going, they're dangerous. They're crazy. I just heard Ben Shapiro the other day, and I hate to bring him up again because I just talked about him like 2 weeks ago. But I heard him talking about Megyn Kelly. Now, keep in mind, I don't follow either one of them closely, but I caught a clip. You catch clips, and probably the reason I had Ben Shapiro in my feed at all is because I was looking up those videos for the episode 2 weeks ago. But he was like talking about how Megyn Kelly was always against Trump until, whatever, like she's basically a fair weather fan. And I was like, bro, you were never Trumper too. Like, what are you talking about? So it's just like, wow. But he supports the movement. He's going along with the movement. He's letting the movement take him away. And what do you have to do if you don't follow the movement's viewpoint and you don't agree with them? You have to be ostracized. You have to be mocked. You have to be made fun of. You have to be ridiculed. And he's following that to a T. And we definitely saw this. Like, if I were to play this same clip during the COVID years or during the height of when woke censorship was coming across, we've kind of gotten beyond that. And it's starting to go the other direction, which is kind of scary, where the right is trying to censor certain things that they don't feel is appropriate. But this would have applied to them too. And it's like, people get to be a part of this group. They feel like they're special, and they're just being used by the group. And then as the group grows, people just sort of like fall in line. They fall in lockstep. And the question, the very powerful question at the end of this is, how far would you follow that group? And when you look at what's going on in Iran, would you follow Israel into a genocide? Right? I'm not saying there is a genocide, but would you follow them into it? Like, I've been thinking a lot about this lately. Israel removed from the conversation. When we're allies with a country, and that country does something that isn't in our best interest and is morally or ethically questionable, not making any judgments, I'm just saying, where's the line on alliances? Because, like, let's use England or Britain for an example. If they started attacking somebody that we didn't think deserved it, do we join them in the fight? And they've been put in a real tough spot too, because they don't necessarily fully agree with what we're doing in Iran, and they've had their moments. But it's like, oh, you have to be an ally forever? And is this alliance on ethical principles? Like, are we allied because we agree, or are we allied because we have to be? Right? Like, if you break the alliance, you're not going to survive because that country's too powerful. Is that really an alliance? It's kind of weird. Like, it's when you start thinking about things that way, it's kind of weird. But the question I was thinking about after mulling all this over, this clip specifically, is how far do we follow a country like Israel? Like how far, at what point do we go, dude, no, we're not doing that anymore? Same with any ally. I'm using Israel because they're the ones we're in conflict, we're allied with in this conflict. But where's the line? When does it stop? Like, is there a point where this becomes ethically questionable? And how does, I don't even know, at a political level, how do you draw that line? I have no idea. Let's look at my third clip here. 39:28.
Yes, you would have all made good Nazis. You would have put on the uniforms, turned your heads, and allowed your friends and neighbors to be persecuted and destroyed. Fascism isn't something those other people did. It's right here, in all of us. You ask, how could the German people do nothing as millions of innocent human beings were murdered? How could they claim they weren't involved? What causes people to deny their own history? Well, if history repeats itself, you'll all want to deny what has happened to you in the wave. But if our experiment is successful, you will have learned that we are all responsible for our own actions, and that you must question what you do rather than blindly follow a leader, and that for the rest of your lives, you will never allow a group's will to usurp your individual rights.
I really love that ending because he says, you'll never allow a group's will to usurp your individual rights. I would have liked to have seen him take it one step further and said, or the individual rights of your neighbor. That would have really sealed the deal. But man, what a powerful movie. Highly recommend you go check it. I put the links in the show notes. These are just clips from it. It's short, but man, do people need to watch this, because if that doesn't get you to start thinking like, have I really thought through all my positions? Or am I just happy that I'm on a team? And one of the powerful images in this video is there's a kid who is kind of like staring out the window, kind of a loser, kind of gets made fun of at lunch. He just loves the wave. He loves being part of the wave, and he becomes one of the most like ardent followers of the wave because it made him feel important. And I got to thinking about like a lot of the cultural things that we see. Like, for example, COVID is a great example, because how many of us know people who, whether it was the masks or the vaccine, just became like they were just quiet, average, everyday people, and they became extremists for the left because of the masks. Some of them are still wearing the masks today, not as a protection against microbes, but as a protest or as an alliance. It's no different than their armband. I look at the MAGA hat the same way. It's like, why do you wear that hat? Why do you wear the symbol of your leader? It's concerning. It's concerning, right? Like, it's one thing to wear a t-shirt with something you believe on it. It's another thing to like to me, when I look at both the left and the right, you start entering into this fascist mentality, groupthink. I think the best phrase is groupthink. When you start wearing, like I look at the left and it's the mask, and on the right it's the MAGA hat. It'll be something else down the road, but it's not, you're just following the group. It's not your individual thoughts, and you're giving up your freedoms for this group. And for what? And, this experiment, he comes to the conclusion that, hey, never let another group usurp your individual rights. Don't ever let it happen again. That was the kind of the lesson, because when you do that, when you give up your rights, your individual rights for the group, you never get them back. And when you allow the group to take other people's individual rights, they never get them back. And then when that group that you let take it gets in power, they're going to take yours. They're going to take yours. And I love the fact that he says that fascism wasn't something that was happening over there. It's something that's here in us, and that we could be susceptible to if we're not careful. And, the term or the word fascism may have a technical meaning or whatever. I look at what he's talking about here is this not the tyrant who leads, but the people who follow. That heart, what a fascist needs is for followers to not think for themselves, to not think critically, to not think ethically, to not think morally. That's what they need. They need people who will go along with the group, shame the people who disagree, and silence the people who are against them. Rather than thinking through things, we want to shut it down. And so I looked at in my head, I was thinking about COVID and how, man, that was crazy time. It's crazy in two ways. One, it's crazy that it happened. A lot of the things that came down were just wild. Like the things that the government did, shutting down businesses, forcing us into lines and standing 6 feet apart and wearing the masks and getting the shot. Like, whoa. Like, it was too easy for them to pull that off. But also, how quickly we've forgotten how bad that was. Like, how dictatorial that was. How crazy that was. It was just I remember when they started putting stickers on the floors in Walmart to tell you which direction to walk. It's just, and now we're kind of living life like it never happened. Like, it's sort of in the back of our minds. Like I said, one of the things that concerns me, and the reason that this kind of came back to me and I wanted to have this conversation on the podcast, is I'm concerned that, so I wish I'd have pulled up the clip because I need to go back and find it. I was talking about this back in 2015 on my old podcast. The extreme side of the right and the extreme side of the left are right now going back and forth. And each time they go, it's like a rubber band. They're going a little further this way and a little further this way. But where they meet, where they agree, is in the sense of total power. The leaders of the right are pulling for more power so that they can make the world their utopia. And the left is pulling in this direction so they can make the world their utopia. Somewhere in the middle are the people who are being pulled in either direction. And they are also the ones who can pull it back to the center. And in my mind, the center is liberty. The center is freedom. The center is self-defense, protection, having your beliefs and sharing those beliefs with other people, and living in community without being forced to, as they talked about in that first clip, be quiet when a particular subject comes up, right? And so it's just amazing to me when I look at COVID and to see how quickly that happened. The other two items I wanted to touch on really quickly was in this video, there's a girl who writes for the newspaper, and I wish I had clipped this, but it doesn't matter. So there's a point where she's writing against the wave that's taking over the school. Like, she's writing articles against it, and the wave decides to shut her up because her words are dangerous. Man, that part was so the parallel to what we see presently in the way both the right and the left have spoken about what gets said and how things are said. It was wild. Ultimately, it turned into a violent act where the ex-boyfriend he broke up with the girl because she wouldn't commit to the wave, and then he goes and he throws her on the floor because she won't listen, and then he realizes, oh, this has gone too far. So it's like the whole thing. But the whole point of that scene was, we need to silence the detractors of the wave. the people who are not for the group, the people who are thinking for themselves, you got to shut them up. And so the propaganda talking point was powerful. And then there's also this whole one thing that really stands out is the use of intimidation and force, social shame specifically, in order to quiet down the people who object. And you really get a good sense of, like, when you watch this, you see how 3 or 4 people in a crowd can make one person feel like question themselves and think, wow, this is, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I am stupid. Maybe I am a problem. And how quickly your independence, how quickly the group can make you question your independence, your liberty, your freedom, your critical thinking, and shut you down, and how you kind of like stuff that down in. And I think there's a lot of that goes on with a lot of the social projects that companies and organizations are pushing right now. BLM, woke stuff, transgender stuff, all of that. All that stuff has this, like, if you're in a group of people who are pushing that, the person who might not be totally in support of it, they'll keep their mouth shut. They won't say anything. And if they do say something, it's like, well, why aren't you accepting? Why don't you appreciate these people? Why? And it's not that. It's that you don't want to have it pushed on you. And if you protest on it being pushed on you, somehow you're a problem. You see it every day. Share in the comments. I'd love to hear somebody's thoughts on this from a different perspective, because I'm sure there are people. I'm coming at this from like a right of center perspective, even being critical of the right as I look at it. It'd be curious to know what that looks like, maybe a little left of center looking this direction, or like what other examples can you think of where the group causes people to, clam up a little bit, like, oh, well, everyone agrees with this, so I guess I need to be quiet, or it's not worth fighting. That's a good one. It's not worth fighting over. Let's just go along with the crowd, that kind of thing. So anyway, the movie is called The Wave. I guess it's a movie. I don't know. But it's actually based on a true story. Not sure how true the story is. I thought about going down that whole rabbit hole, but then I was like, hey, it's the Uncredible Podcast. We're not trying to get our facts right. It's a good movie. Encourage you to watch it. If you watch it and you think I'm crazy, tell me what's wrong with it. But I was watching it and I was going, wow, this is as powerful as I remember it being when I was in elementary school. Junior high? I don't know, somewhere in there. I watched it when I was pretty young. My Uncredible, my view of this with it, when I look at this from an Uncredible lens, I put, these are from my notes. As we head towards the midterms, I do worry about how caught up both sides are with their own agendas and in their own groups. They're captured by groupthink and willing to silence the individual for the sake of the group. MAGA right and the woke left are both guilty of trying to silence their detractors and push people out of their group. What I wouldn't give for us to have a much more nuanced political approach, but we do live in the United States of America, where there is a very firm two-party system with a dangling third libertarian party, and that seems like that's all you can have, And it seems like to me, now more than ever in my lifetime, not ever, it seems like there's a lot of nuance in both of these two parties. There's people who believe a lot of what the left believes, but then they don't believe in one particular aspect, like the woke agenda, or the at the time the Russia-Ukraine alliance, whatever was going on there. Same with the right? You've got people who are like, yeah, I support the social issues of the right, and I support the conservatism of no wasteful spending, but I don't like going to war. And boy, does the right love to go to war. It's crazy. So yeah, so that's our main topic, looking at the world through an Uncredible lens. Now let's turn to what I consider to be a really fun podcast feature. Now, this podcast feature, Community Trail Running with host Adam Lee, This is one of the ones that I had saved for a long time in my in my playlist there on Spotify that I wanted to come back to. And for my Tuesday, let me go back and look. I think it was Tuesday's run. Tuesday long run? Yeah, my Tuesday 7 miler. I was really, really, really committed to keeping my pace slow. And so I was like, I'm going to listen to podcasts. And I came across, I didn't come across that. I already had one episode saved. And I noticed that Community Trail Running with host Adam Lee, I noticed that his episodes were short from the jump. And I thought, I'm not a big fan of short podcasts for when I'm running, doing what I consider to be a long, slow run. I want something that'll, like I want like a Rogan, which is 3 hours long, or like something that's like an hour long, something like that. And so I was like, yeah, but I do want to have, because last week we didn't have a podcast feature. So I was like, I really do want to have a good podcast feature this week. So I need to take some time and listen. And listen, I was pleasantly surprised. This podcast has kind of a radio feel to it to a degree. One thing I'm noticing, this is not a critique of this podcast, so don't take it that way. And I guess we all as podcasters do this, but as somebody who's not sponsored or who has no ads or things like that, when I'm listening to podcasts, I don't like the sales pitches. I don't like them. I understand the need for them. I know they have to be there because they're ad sponsored and all that stuff. But like, I kind of prefer that stuff, if I'm being honest, to be at the end. Now I know I'm kind of guilty of promoting the Substack at the beginning of my podcast, but it's not like, oh, buy this shoe, or Cam Haines does like his bow hunter stuff right at the beginning, and I think Rogan does AG1 or something like that. But it's like straight up in your face, like an advertisement. Middle of the episode, it seems like it's okay. Straight out the gate, and that, I had kind of like in my head, it was like a red flag. But all that aside, after his ad at the beginning, or he calls whatever you call that, where he promotes whatever he wants to promote. I guess it's good to get it out of the way at the beginning. So he does that, and I don't think he goes back to it the rest of the episode. But that said, I really enjoyed these short podcast episodes. And I actually ended up listening to 3 of the episodes on that 7-mile run. I didn't quite finish the third one. Actually, no, I did. Did I finish 3 of them? I did finish 3, and I was actually on a 4th one. So I actually listened to 3 full episodes, and I'll go through them very quickly. But listen, I really did enjoy the fact that these were short, and they kind of jump from one to the next. And one of my favorite things about, I didn't listen to the whole podcast, like every episode, but the episodes I listened to were uncredible people. And what I really loved was at least 2 of the episodes that I listened to, I guess all 3 in a way. So the first one that I listened to was Body Art Club with Heather Anderson. And I get the impression she's a tattoo artist of some kind, or has tattoos, something to that effect. It's been a couple days since I listened to it. That was actually the first one I listened to, because I was trying to be like, oh, what's this about? And she runs a running club, and that was kind of her thing. And she does this club where she runs, and she does this, all over the place. And then there was the Devil's Ladder with Dan Bourget. I'm gonna butcher that. Devil's Ladder with Dan Bourget. And then the last one I listened to completely was Perseverance Trail Running with Sean Carberry. And all of these people, I mean, I guess they're runners, but the focus of the episode was on their volunteer work. And coming off the Buffalo Marathon, where I found myself sort of stuck going slow through water stations and really being forced to appreciate that aspect of the marathon, I really appreciated these episodes, because one thing I thought was, I was thinking back on the Buffalo Marathon, I was like, you know what? I'm going through my photos from the Buffalo Marathon, like, oh, they took professional photos of me running down this street and crossing the finish line. Nobody takes pictures of the volunteers and posts them. Now, I don't know if they want that, but they're out there as long as all the runners, just standing there. They're doing something not for the mileage, but for the time. And the runners can't do what they're doing without their support in general. So I was thinking about it. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I find myself in a cramped situation or in a situation where I need to walk through some water stations in my next marathon? Wouldn't it be cool if I pulled my phone out and actually took photos of the volunteers, like from the runner's perspective? So I had that in my mind while I'm listening to this, and I'm like, this is so cool. This is this is the volunteer aspect of running, and it's sort of like honoring the people who are behind the scenes doing the everyday work, which is what Uncredible is. It's everyday people doing uncredible things. The second two people I mentioned, they actually are race organizers, I believe, and so they actually, I think it's all ultra. I don't know. By the way, there's no. Why is there no? Maybe there is, but why is there no middle ground? It's like you start running marathons and then everything in your feed becomes trail running, ultra runs. So I think most of this was trail running and ultra running. And one thing you don't think about, take the Cocodona 250, for example. Somebody has to plot that course out. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy, because I think it was Sean Carberry who was talking about how they had to run it and see how, like, they set the course up, they ran it to see how far it was, tracked it on Strava, watch, whatever. And I was thinking to myself, so somebody's got to run these routes and plot them out, and what if they're wrong and then you got to try it again? Boy, that's kind of crazy. And I'm assuming with trail running, you got to clear a trail, set up flags or directions of some kind. We don't understand as runners sometimes, myself specifically, all the work that's involved in putting these races together, or in Heather Anderson's perspective, doing the run club. And I think she talked a little bit about doing volunteer work as well. But that aspect of it doesn't get highlighted as much. And the great thing about it was these episodes, because they were so short, they kind of left you wanting to know a little bit more. And that might just be my perspective because I listen to a lot of longer form podcasts. But I noticed that as these episodes were finishing up, I was like, man, I could have listened to that for another 30 minutes. And then we was on to the next one. And normally, with a 30-minute podcast where I'm trying to do a podcast feature, I would have shut that off after the first one. And I'm actually halfway through. The last episode I was listening to, I didn't get all the way through. It was about hypnotherapy or something and the use in running. Didn't get very far with that. So I'll have to go back and check that out. But yeah, if our podcast feature, if you're interested in something that's a little more punchy and digs into the nitty gritty of really ultra running, check out the Community Trail Running with host Adam Lee. And he's another one of these that I think, let me see, did I find him on, I want to say he's on Substack. Yeah, he's another one of these ones that I found on Substack. If you remember a couple of weeks back, I said that I put this post on Instagram Threads. Is it Threads or Instagram Threads? I guess it's just Threads, where I said, if you're on Threads and you have a Substack and a podcast, I want to know. I'm pretty sure he was one of the ones that was like, hey, I'm in. So I think the Midpacker podcast, and I think this one, and maybe another one or two showed up in that message. So check him out. I put all the links in the description. Go to his most recent episodes and check out the ones that I mentioned. Body Art Club with Heather Anderson, The Devil's Ladder with Dan Bourget, and Perseverance Trail Run with Sean Carberry. Trying to gather up all the links to all their socials and things like that was going to take too much time. So sorry. Go to his, I got all the links to get to Adam Lee's Substack, Spotify, and Instagram. That should get you on the track if you're going to dig a little deeper into that. That should get you on the right track for listening to it. And then if you want to follow up with some of those other people and check that out. So yeah, check it out. Community Trail Running with Adam Lee. Now let's get into our quote of the week. Yeah, sorry, I just want to make sure. I typed this up this morning and then I couldn't remember if I had the right quote sitting here. So, and I don't know why this one's scratched up, or it looks like it got razor bladed or something. I'm not sure what happened there. But here we go. We'll see if this works on the new camera. I held it too high last week. The quote of the week is, today is the day to become your own inspiration. Today is the day to become your own inspiration. Now, the reason I chose that quote is because I've been thinking a lot about this idea that you are important. And when I say you, I mean me. So like my goals, my dreams, my visions, my desires, my hopes, they need to have some level of priority in my life, and the same is true for you. In order for you to be the best person you can be for the people around you, you have to, and this is counterintuitive, you have to stop trying to fulfill other people's dreams and hopes for you. And, I think about this as a parent and how I watch my kids sometimes try to do things to impress me, or because I would want them to, or because mom would want them to do that, or mom would be proud of them if they did that. At some point in your life, you have to become the person you're trying to please. And it's a weird thing, because we spend a lot of our lives, probably some people more than others, trying to make the people around us happy, trying to be inspired by other people and become other people. And at some point you have to go, who do I want to be? What do I want from my life? And I love this because it says, today is the day to become your own inspiration. And, I've had ups and downs thoughts about my Buffalo Marathon experience, because on the one hand, I'm very proud of the fact that I've completed 2 marathons in September to May, whatever the time, 7 months, whatever time frame that is. I'm also very frustrated with the results from both of them in comparison to the training that I've put in. But when I read this quote, today is the day to become your own inspiration, I thought to myself, listen, my 5:04 Buffalo Marathon time did not, from a pace standpoint, beat my 5:02 marathon time 7 months ago. However, I remember who I was in, I'm not going to say June, but I remember who I was in May and June of 2025, a year ago. And that guy was struggling to run 12 miles ever. That guy was this is crazy. That guy was carrying around a vinegar bottle as a joke for water. I had an empty vinegar bottle, and it actually held the water pretty good for my runs. So I didn't have a water vest. I didn't have a water belt. I didn't have fuel. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I was using a vinegar bottle. There's a lot of people you can look up to for inspiration. You can scroll through Instagram and get motivation, inspiration, and just quotes and clips and music, and try to become something that you're not. Or you can look at who you are and become your own, become inspired by yourself. Become inspired by who you want to be and your work ethic. And the more that I've done this running thing, half marathon, marathon, half marathon in the Winter Beast Challenge, Buffalo Marathon, as I stack these miles, as I do these things, I become less and less dependent on someone else's drive and motivation. Listen, for me, it started with guys like Goggins and Cameron Haynes, but now, as much as those guys inspire me, I can look at my own path for the last year, and really the last 6 years, and go, I can be my own inspiration. I've done this before. I can do this. So anyway, I thought that was a really cool quote. It's one of the quotes. It's actually the quote for Thursday this week. What's Friday about? It's funny because I actually thought this was kind of feel like I screwed something up now, but I actually thought this was the quote for Friday, and it was the quote for Thursday. So with that said, I got to write my mileage down. It's this calendar. By the way, this calendar my wife bought me for Christmas. That's where these quotes are coming from. And I write my mileage on them every single day, and I thought I already did that. So All right, let's close things out. Thanks for listening to the Uncredible Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, join the Substack, do all the things that get the algorithms to push the podcast. Do those things. Like and subscribe, YouTube, Spotify. Definitely don't only subscribe to the episodes, but if you have an episode you actually like it. The Substack, just type your email address. So I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but if you go to uncredible.me, that's uncredible.me, the first thing that's going to pop up is like a place for you to put your email address in. I don't get that email. I mean, I can look at that email address, but I don't look at it. I have access to it, but basically what it does is Substack marks you down as a subscriber, and then it starts emailing you my content. You can set that content in your Gmail, Hotmail, whatever MSN Live, whatever it is. You can take your email account and just dump that into spam. It might go there automatically. That's up to you. Or you can have it go to your inbox and you can follow all the stuff that I'm producing and putting out. It's up to you. It's free. But once you do that, every time you go to the website as a subscriber, it won't, that message won't pop up anymore. So it does help if you subscribe. Check it out. And if you want to follow, like, my thing with Substack is you don't have to have YouTube, Spotify, any of the extra things. If you just have Substack subscription, I don't even like to use the word subscription, but if you have your email linked to my Substack, all the content goes to you. Okay, all of it. You don't have to go to YouTube to check to see if there's an update. You don't have to go to Spotify and follow two different podcasts because I've got the Uncredible Readings and then the Uncredible Podcast. You don't have to do all of that. You could just download the Substack app, create an account, follow, and then subscribe to the Uncredible channel, and then it'll just be in your phone or in your email, whichever one you prefer. Uncredible merch. Check out merch.uncredible.me. This is hosted by Redbubble. I don't really do anything but create the designs, and then you can throw the designs onto shirts. This is the official Uncredible Podcast shirt. I was thinking today, I don't know if you could tell, it's probably hard to tell in the camera. This shirt, I love this shirt, but it's also one of my more disappointing shirts. So the cheapest cotton shirt you can get on Redbubble is the logos do fade, and in particular on this light shirt. And then I also have a super Uncredible. It's like UN instead of Superman. That's a gray shirt. It's a long sleeve. Both of these light colored cotton shirts, I think it's the cheapest shirt you can get, the logo's faded on them. I have one other Uncredible shirt that's black where that hasn't happened yet, or it's kind of started to, but it's not as prominent. So what I would say is they have an active t-shirt. It's slightly more expensive, but what I was wishing today as I was coming down to record the podcast was I was wishing I had this shirt, exactly this shirt, on the full 100% polyester black active t-shirt that they offer. I think if you don't get a discount, it was probably like $31, but I think there's almost always a Redbubble discount and gets it down to like $25, $26. But yeah, and then there's stickers and stuff like that. I think I've shown these before, but there's you can get stickers. By the way, if you have kids, Uncredible kids stuff, I think that's pretty. I always thought that was pretty cool, but whatever. And then there's the Uncredible logo. You throw that on a shirt, whatever. So check out merch.uncredible.me. All kinds of crap on there. And then if you're interested in like the everyday runs, I do post 2 photos, sometimes some reels, whatever, on Instagram. I'm trying to make sure I'm pretty consistent now with getting those the videos will go to Instagram, YouTube, Substack. The pictures with my mileage and how I did on Strava pretty much every day on Substack and Instagram. So, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's kind of the main social channel that I use. That's at Jeremy Lundmark. Link again in the description. So yeah, I think that pretty much settles it. Thanks for watching and for listening. And remember, stay uncredible.